We're good. We're going live again. We're finishing up our restorative practice for the basic training. And this is kind of like a bonus round because typically we just do yoga translations 1 through 4, but we're actually adding in some more restorative. So if somebody comes in and they're just not ready to do an entire sequence, we're doing like the first couple poses or picking and choosing a few poses from each one of the translations. So I'd like to start out with what I call the hammock pose or the lounging sequence, not the lunges, because I also like to call those lounging, but literally just lounging. And I'm going to show you how to get into it from our floating Buddha. Because it's just nice when you can tell somebody is really needing a break. We can turn this into a nice yin practice, which will invite them to come back and challenge themselves and do more each time. So we're going to stand in the center of the mat, bring our arms towards the sky, and start out in a sumo squat. That's our go-to pose to enter into all the other sequences. We push the swing down so it's nice and low. And when we lean back, we're going to go right into our forearm press, slide our feet forward, front of the mat, walk it out till 10 and 2. So a little faster getting into our sumo. And again, can you get the pelvic rock here? Okay, can the pubic bone roll back and down? So don't press the pubic bone forward at all anymore because it's already doing that. So practice rocking back, rocking back. Rocking back. That's the direction. You know, you're pushing forward too much. So counterbalance that with more of that rolling under and back. It's going to feel really weird at first and really different, especially trying to keep the knees open while you do that because it's like, wait a second, my pelvis is going to move in a totally different way. And that's why we started out with those belly dancing moves too, which is what we were trying to do on the, so you stay where you are so I can just show you because I'm going to just show you how it's the same exact movement from here. So you have to rock the pubic bone back and down. So it's like the belly lengthens. So do the same thing that I'm doing, but in the swing. So you're rocking the pubic bone back. And then the belly dancing moves is this. Yes, that is what we were doing on the floor. So when you get home to review all this, I want you to focus on just isolating the pelvis. You see how it's coming from my hips, not just my upper body going like this, which is what you were doing. No offense. We're using Beverly as an example today. But see how my pelvis isn't moving at all? But this is the belly dancing moves that we've learned. And that's what we want to do on the floor where we can actually get the press to help us lift. So here we have to press into the swing to get the lift, right? So that's how we keep the chest lifted and that same movement where we're loosening up the pelvis. Okay, let's keep our arms wrapped around now. We always hug the swing. And then we're going to grab for the leg loops one at a time. Let's put the right one on. Now we know how to engage our core after doing the basic training. So when we lift, we bring the knee out to the side and we're going to hook the ankle. Very good. Ankle, right? For floating Buddha. Second side. So hold on with both hands, nice and strong. Lift through the core. Hook the ankle. And this is our full Buddha, okay? So let's just go into chillaxing arms and do a few windshield wipers because it feels so good. Remember, roll the chest up towards the sky. Let the head sink back into the hands. So your gaze is up, but your hips are really heavy. So this is the counterbalance. Can the pubic bone still roll back and down in this pose, right? Because people tend to push their hips up. We're trying to keep the pubic bone rolled back and down in all of these poses so we can lengthen the front of the spine. It'll feel really differently once you get that. Okay, so even if the legs are moving, the pelvis stays dropped. Yeah, and we keep the chest lifted. So don't lose the chest to get the hips dropped. It's a sweet spot, right? It's a dynamic tension between these two opposites. Okay, let's go ahead and spread the leg loops out for this variation. It's really fun. So this is why I made all the equipment with so much material. It's like twice as big as it needs to be, really. And then it's doubled up and keeps it nice and thick. But that way we can spread it out. Let's get both legs into the right leg loop. We're going to cross the ankles. Okay, so this is the lounge. So I can support my head with my hand, or we might as well use this nifty leg loop that we have left over. So I'm going to put it behind my head and underneath the back of the neck, spread out. So it's important to spread it out as well because we don't want to kink the cervical spine. So this is a nice neck stretch. So this is the hammock stretch. I'm going to get my hair out of the way. But typically, I like to keep the leg loop spread out. Just that's the key. You might need to take earrings out and that kind of thing if you're at home and practicing, just so there's no obstruction. And then I like my arms to drop to the sides. If you feel like you need more support, you can reach up and hold on to the top of the leg loop. And then you get to practice pressing the hips up and seeing if that feels better, or dropping the hips and see which one you like. Dropping the hips and pressing the hips up, they're two totally different stretches. That one is better than the other. You just have to find your favorite. And then we're going to keep going. We're going to thread through. Both arms go through center, and we transition the leg loop behind the back. So it's going to be doubled up under the arms. Yeah. And then in this pose, we're really working more with the upper back. You can drop the hips again and not go too far into a back bend, or you can really press the hips up and allow the head to point down towards the ground. The arms can open up to the sides, which is a really nice variation. Where can you really hang out? That's why I like to call it hammock pose. It's almost like being in a hammock. Good. And whenever you want to come out, you just simply drop the hips. So when you drop the hips, it lifts the upper body. We come on back to center. We're going to reverse it. So undo the leg loop. Okay, you can put it back behind the neck if you really liked it and do a second round of neck stretching. We're going to go to the other side, so we're not going to hang out here very long, but this is an option. And then when you take it off, we're going to immediately transition back to floating Buddha. So the left leg comes out, and we're going to stretch it out. And then the right leg is removed, and we cross the ankles. So both legs transition to the left. And I wanted to let you guys know, unless it's tangled up, you can also stretch out the swing. So sometimes people like to get in. So I'm just going to show you. So Beverly, bend your knees so you don't kick the camera again. But I'm just going to show you that you can actually get into the swing. Okay? And this would be like more of the full hammock pose. And everyone's like, oh God, I'm done. But no, keep your arms out, even if you stretch out here. And then you can get the other leg loop on behind the back of the neck. You'll just find that you're way more supported. Now you don't have to really worry so much about pressing the hips up or not. They're just kind of sitting in the swing instead. Okay, so bunched up or spread out, it's really your choice. I'm going to come back to where Beverly is, and you can even just pull it and spread it out a little over the rib cage. So lots of different variations. Now you can straighten your legs, hun. I just didn't want you to try and get the swing under your butt and go crazy. Sometimes you get a little buck wild over there. Okay, so after the neck stretch, we're going to get our arms through center. So it's like putting on a t-shirt is what I call it. So one arm and then the other arm, pull it down so it bunches up. And then chillaxing arms is always a great option. You can try pressing the hips up and leaning back and see how that feels, or you can try dropping the hips, just hanging out here. So if you want to try a supported back bend, like really leaning back, let the crown of the head sink down towards the floor, open the arms wide. If it feels good on the shoulders, just let the body go. In our restorative practice, we like to hold the poses for longer. So maybe 2 minutes here. That could be 10 breaths. Whatever feels right. Sometimes it's fun to gently rock the hips from side to side. So I'll come back into my chillaxing arms and do a little fishtail movement. We can play with bending the knees from one side to another. There's lots of fun variations if you really just wanted to play in the pose instead of it being still and restorative. So yeah, I like that you can even kind of sit cross-legged, which is nice. If we're in a crowded room, I'll have everybody bend their knees out to the side like this, which is still a great variation. Okay. So now let's reverse it in one more neck stretch. Get the leg loop very gently. It's spring loaded. Let's get that back underneath the cervical spine, but spread out so that it covers the full length of the ears. Just try letting your chin tuck into your chest and your arms drop off to the side. And just see if that gives a nice tractioning to the back of the neck. As long as it feels good, you're in the right place. Notice that the upper body is still being supported by the swing, so you're not going to drop down too far. So you can even practice pushing the hips up instead. See how that feels. Lots of different ways to play and explore in the swing. Now we're just going to come on out and transition back to both leg loops on. And let's go ahead and do one more supported back bend here. Just getting the swing across the hips. Legs together, legs straight, toes touch. Keep holding on. And just notice how good this feels, but it's a little bit more of an advanced pose. So we're going to come to sit. So start to bend the knees, let the leg loops slide up and bunch up behind the knees. And notice that we can go right into our chillaxin. So for most people, this is going to be as much of a back bend as they do. Okay, so we're going to clasp our hands behind the back of the head. Same thing, roll your pubic bone down and back, right? So really deepen through the hip flexors, hip creases. That's another way of thinking about it. But lift the heart up. So big arch through the upper thoracic spine. And now we can reach up and grab for the swing. Keep the knees bent and push the hips up, lean back. So this is a supported bow. Since back bends are so difficult for most people to get into in a safe way, I think it's really great to give these alternatives. You don't have to go super far, that's enough. Holding on with your hands, arms are straight, head is pointing down towards the earth, hips are straight up. Swing slides to the waist. And then inhale, bicep curl, come to sit, drop your hips. Okay, so from chillaxin pose, if we were going to do a restorative sequence, I would recommend starting out with the full chillaxin, hands behind the back of the head, coming into swagger, gently rocking from side to side. This is all review, right? And then we can use our momentum to come into a seated pigeon. Okay, so let's start with the right foot. Now here, we don't even have to move from our chillaxin arms. We can just stay right here. Sometimes I'll just have people roll their ankles around to get a deeper stretch. Just notice if that changes things. And then switch sides. Let's do the other side. Left foot on top. Roll the ankles around, maybe even add a little swagger. You can wag the tail so that right foot, pretending like it's your tail, is exploring in the space. Good. And then even here we can add a back bend. So we can come into the bow like we did before, or we can reach up and grab for the swing. Press the hips up and lean back. So coming into a bow from our seated pigeon. I call this can opener, because I imagine that our hips are the can that we're opening with our little device here. And then come on back to sit, bicep curl, lift the head, drop the hips, and release the foot. So from swagger, we're almost done. We're just going to do one more back bend. And so heart is lifted, head is relaxed back into the hands, gaze is up, hips are heavy. So this is enough of a back bend that if somebody wants to go further, we're going to come through center, reach up and grab for the swing. When you inhale, lift, exhale, press, right? Press the hips and then let the swing slide down. Maybe that requires a little hop or wiggle to get it into a sweet spot across the iliac crest, across the hip bones. And then we keep holding on. We're going to arch and open the heart here. Knees stay bent. And the back of the head is kind of pulling towards the heels. It's not going to touch, but that's the direction we're going in. Inhale, bicep curl. Come on up to sit and take a rest. Good. We have 10 more minutes, so we're going to do just a few minutes of lounging with the lunges, the second lounge, and then we're going to come into a supported headstand. And then we'll be done for today. So most people don't think of a headstand as restorative, but that's why I like to isolate that pose as something that anyone can do, a version at least. Maybe not a full headstand, but the kind we do is very helpful to reverse the energy flow. Inversions are some of the best things that we can do for our body for our overall optimal health. Okay, so we're going to come through center. We're going to reach for our knees. And we're going to try just doing a regular lunge. Regular, our floating lunges. Nothing regular about us over here. We're going to reach up as high as we can on the leg loops. We're going to bicep curl up and then bend the right knee. Let the left leg stay straight, but then we're going to roll onto the top of the thigh. Now, this might be too difficult for the average person, so our variation is instead of floating, we're going to just continually let that leg loop slide up. And then once we can plant our foot, we're going to keep our alignment to the 9 and 3 position. So I want you to look down at your mat and think of it as a clock and keep your feet, even the floating one, at 9 and 3. Press out to the side even more. So if you want, we did this last time. It's kind of like the flying arrow. We can press that forward. That helps, right? Lift your gaze. Lift your heart. There's nothing down there. Well, the 9 and 3 is down there. That's right. I did tell you to look. Now look at the sky. Look at the clock at the sky. All right, let's try the other side. So first we pick up the knee, let it slide back down. Bicep curl and lift. Keep the left knee bent. Roll onto the top of the right. For some reason, this thing likes to eat my pants today, but that's all right. Roll onto the top. And then drop the hips, right? Can we drop the hips but lift the heart? Is it possible to get those two to keep going in opposite directions even here? Some of these intense poses. And if that's too much, you'll tell by people's face. Let the foot come down and find the ground. So 9 and 3 position, slide it up. You might need to wiggle into the sweet spot. There is a spot that feels better than others. And then you can press the front arm straight. Keep the chest lifted, keep the gaze lifted, and the knees moving towards 9 and 3. You'll notice, especially the front leg wants to come out to, let's say it's 10 o'clock for you. It'd be 2 o'clock for me. But yeah, open it up. Okay, great. Come on back to center. I want to show you one more restorative lounge variation. Pick up the knee, let the leg loop slide down, but then we're going to spread it out. We're going to immediately stretch it out so it's from the top of the thigh to the knee, the back of the knee. Okay? So we're not going to be able to lift the hips as much, but we want to get those as wide as possible. And then we're going to reach for the leg loops, pull ourselves back up. So we're just going to simply bend the right knee and roll the left hip forward, and direction is going to be down. Keep your hands holding on. Okay? So can you open it up so it's near 9 and 3 again? So you're going to have to energetically open that leg up by pressing the knee out. Yeah. So that's a good lounge for somebody who's just beginning. Where's your head, right? Where's your gaze? Keep that up. Okay. So then to come to the other side, we're simply going to bend the left knee, press the right hip forward, and just pretend like you're rolling it down towards the ground. There's material there, so you might not go as far. But spreading the leg loops out allows people to hang out in the lunges for a lot longer. So that is an option, especially if there's stagnation or sensitivity in the legs, which happens a lot, then it won't be as comfortable with it bunched up. We can spread it out. Now, if it bunches up again, Beverly, just think about sinking your hips down and spreading it out again, right? So it's okay to come in and out of it because they will try and bunch up again on you, but you can just lean back, spread them out, and try again. It actually helps to open up the hips because you have to really lengthen through the hip flexor in order to keep it spread out. Because if your foot comes down towards the ground, yeah, it's obviously going to bunch back up. And it's okay. If it goes back up towards the groin and we plant our foot down, it's no problem. Okay? Fantastic. So those are the lunge variations. Let's come through chillaxing. Let's do one round of swagger as a reset. Shake it out. If there's any parts that need some attention, you can free flow. Give yourself what you need for today. Maybe extend one leg and the other leg, and you can make it a bigger swag, whatever feels good, without kicking anything. And now we're going to come to our sumo, taking the leg loops off. Actually, all right, we're going to do a new sequence. We all know how to do headstand on the ground. So the new sequence for coming into a restorative headstand is sliding the leg loops up. So we reach for the leg loops, the top, and pulling our feet together towards the center of the mat and sliding them up into the groin. So let's just say we're in Shalaksan and we want to go into a headstand. Instead of having to come down, take the leg loops off, get out of the swing, walk around back, get it at the hips, the front of the hips, and then lean forward. We're just going to stand in our high diver and then remove the swing from behind our back and put it in front of us. Okay? We just saved ourselves a solid 3 minutes to go into Shavasana. A longer Shavasana. Now, what is going to happen for people who have a lot of sensitivity here, you're going to have everything kind of doubled up. So you have a lot more support. The only thing about this is you're even more suspended, so your head's probably not going to touch down as much. So your feet are going to try and come up. So you just have to be careful when you lean forward that you try to keep your toes glued to the ground as long as you can, and then you let them float. Now, legs are straight to begin. I'm dropping my forearms towards the ground. Okay, let the swing be on the hips, right? The bottom below the hip bone, the bottom part of the hips where the legs insert into the pelvis. And this is our floating leaf, right? So we went through a forward fold, but just for a moment, and we immediately let ourselves float. Now from here, to come into our headstand, we're going to clasp our fingers together. Okay, plant your forearms down if you can. Your head might not touch down, but you can bend your knees and have your ankles touch, right? So knees touch, ankles touch. And the knees are going to keep floating, but not higher than the hips, right? So if you pull your knees down, your head raises. If you pull your knees up, your head comes down, but maybe your head doesn't touch. So this, particularly for people who have head and neck injuries where they just refuse to put any pressure on the top of the head or, for the shoulders, this is pure magic, right? Fully suspended, absolutely no tension. It's a great variation. So this is our supported headstand in our restorative practice. I normally like to stay here for 3 to 5 minutes and do some variations. So if you have a variation you like, go ahead and try it. Otherwise, just stay stacked, okay? Shoulders are relaxed, but we create a tripod with our arms for support. I do like to hook my feet on the outside of the swing, so sometimes I'll transition to that. It feels good on my hips to get that deep stretch. So that's the outside of the swing. The legs come wide, knees stay close together, and you can hook the feet. But we have to keep our heels close to our bum. If you let your feet float away, then you slide out. So that's a trick. If you do feel like you're sliding out, just release your feet, pull your ankles together to touch again, and pull your knees down towards the earth. And your feet can drop heavy towards the ground to get the swing to slide back into the right spot. So if it feels like it's sliding off, just straighten your legs and bring your feet down, and that makes the swing slide back up into its spot. We only lost Beverly once. That was the pose. So legs are straight towards the ground. Feet, where's the ground? Point towards the ground and put your toes there. Yes, that's the ground. It gets very confusing, right? Brain is, it's not the sky. It's sky. Just because we're reversed doesn't mean ground reversed. Okay, so hands out in front of you, shoulder distance, feet are heavy. We touch down. We're in a floating dog, right? So we're really not going to have our feet fully grounded here. But if we walk them to the center of the mat, and if we walk them forward, then we can touch down, right? Now we're in a forward fold. Come up nice and slow. Make sure, yep, angel wings, beautiful. Make sure you don't get a head rush. And then we're going to get the swing back behind us. Now, since we're here, we might as well just show everyone how we can get into cocoon from our high skydiver. How convenient. We can just spread the swing out. Make sure that the leg loops are closer to like a diaper than it is a thong. So the leg loops need to slide out, then do that first. So not a thong, a diaper. Bring your leg loops to the outer hip bone. That's right. Because when you try to hop in, they're going to slide towards the knees. Yeah. We make sure the swing has material all the way covering the legs. So we don't want it just underneath our bum. We want it to cover the entire hamstring. So too much at the knees though, because you don't have enough at the head then, right? So then you have to wiggle to make sure your head's in there. Yeah, so not too much, just right. There you go. All right, I know it's very bright over there in the yellow swing, but now we go into the womb, right? So we can spread the leg loops out as well, which is so nice. We're not going to do too many leg variations because we're done with our half-hour practice, but if we wanted to do our leg stretches in our cocoon, we could do our Viparita, happy baby, scissors, plow, child. There's all kinds of great variations we could do. Okay, great. So we're going to stay here for about 5 minutes in our cocoon. So Beverly, I'm going to have you lift your legs up and come into Viparita, and we're going to show that variation just so we're not blocking the view. Okay, so legs extended is the most relaxing for our long friends, for anybody really tall. Viparita is great for anybody who has pain or discomfort or stagnation in the lower body. We're going to drain the energy out of the legs, out of the feet. So they're hooked on the inside of the swing, and our toes are facing the sky, and they're going to be. Okay, I like the arms to be out overhead with bent elbows, fingertips dangling towards the floor. Can you let your hips drop even more? Even though you might think you're relaxed, what would it be like to drop it even more? Soften through the belly, through the heart, through the mind. Just let the whole front of the spine completely relax into the swing. Let the brain relax back into the skull. Let the eyes relax back into the head. Everything is being held and supported. This is such a great way to recalibrate the nervous system. We'll naturally boost the immune system once we fully relax. So it's really key to get our nervous systems to unwind. That can quickly be done through hanging. These poses remind us of when we were nurtured and rocked as infants. So it's really important to get that divine hug from the great mother that is our own inner guidance. So the swing gives us that hug. And as our knees continue to soften, you might just naturally float into a happy baby where you can pull your knees towards your armpits and your feet can reach up and grab for the outer edges. Okay, so just a really soft, easy, happy baby here. And then that might naturally transition into a child's pose, a reclined child's, where you release your feet, you let your knees and ankles come together, you curl up into a little ball and wrap your arms over your shins. Just let yourself be hugged and cradled, harnessing your energy in your core. Just pull it all back in like a little seedling to the center of your being. And we're going to have a bit of a shorter Shavasana. I like to do a little bit longer normally, but let's go ahead and blossom. So we're going to extend our arms, extend our legs away from one another. So not towards the sky, but horizontal. We're going to fishtail from side to side. Stretch, stretch, stretch everything. Stretch the body, stretch the hips, stretch the imagination. And then once you feel ready, bend your knees, prepare your landing gear. Toes are dangling towards the floor, and arms reach up for the back edge of the swing. We're going to inhale, bicep curl up to sit. That's why we like to make sure we have enough swing under our bum. And let's just bring our hands to prayer here. We're going to end in Namaste, sitting in the swing today. For those that want a longer Shavasana, this way you can just lean back and go right into a deep rest, maybe even a meditation. But for the rest of us, we're going to close out just having a moment of gratitude and taking inventory, noticing what has shifted, what has changed, what has stayed the same, appreciating it all, honoring this opportunity, this time, this place, this space, one another. Just these tiny moments, these pauses of gratitude are so important. This is part of the heart recalibration. We bring our hands to our heart, we bring our awareness to our heart, and we let those qualities of appreciation, of joy, and of gratitude to fill the air. We carry that with us. To come on out, we're going to be receptive to the light. We inhale, praise the sky, reach up for the swing one more time, and bicep curl up to stand. Thank you so much for playing along with us. Thank you, Beverly, as well. So you can find out more about me, Jen Healy, at AerialYogaPlay.com or AyrXYogaswings.com. That's AYRXYogaswings.com. We look forward to seeing you next week for our grand finale of our basic training here. Thank you. Namaste.